И наш следующий докладчик Enrique Duvós. Он долгое время был руководителем элитной команды евангелистов Adobe, а сейчас в основном занимается разработкой игр. И его доклад называется Adobe Gaming Solutions. Он расскажет нам, почему же крупнейшие компании выбирают именно Flash для разработки своих игр, и почему 9 из 10 игр на Фейсбуке используют Flash. So, Enrique, please, welcome.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for coming to this talk. It's great to be here at Flash GAMM again. So I'm going to give you 45 minutes or so of updates on what we're doing around Flash gaming. Excuse me?
Microphone, please.
Okay, I'll put the microphone. Can I take the microphone? This is going to be easier. Can you hear me? Can you hear me now? Okay, perfect. So like I was saying, I'm going to give you a 45-minute or so introduction into some of the new features that we're working on around gaming, and also give you an idea of what other people around the world are building with Flash for games, especially around the world of 3D and 2D using the latest features. So who am I? My name is, like I said, Enrique Duvós. I run the gaming evangelism team at Adobe. You probably know some of the people that work on my team, like Lee Brimlow or Tom Karch. We actually travel around the world talking to developers like you around what Adobe is doing around Flash and so forth. Now, the first thing I wanted to tell you about was the #1 resource for anybody interested in gaming with Adobe technology is gaming.adobe.com. This is a microsite that we launched a couple of months ago, and it's a Microsoft. Microsoft. That would be interesting. That's a microsite dedicated to showcasing the work that many developers are doing with the technology, and also being a resource for articles, video tutorials, and so forth. So anytime that you want to learn more about gaming with Flash technology, go to gaming.adobe.com. Okay. Now the first question is, this is a Flash conference, Flash GAMM. Why Flash for games? I think there are 3 main reasons why today on the web, the #1 technology for delivering games on the web is Flash. And those 3 reasons are obviously consistency, the fact that you develop a game using the Flash technology and you can get the same consistency of quality across the browser, across multiple devices. Obviously, the second one is quality. We're talking here with Flash Player 11, Stage 3D, and so forth, console quality games running within the browser. This is the first time that we've seen those sort of gaming quality inside a browser. And I'll talk a little bit more about what you can accomplish, and I'll show you a few examples of a Stage 3D running inside the browser. And that's really changing the way games are going to be deployed through the browser in the future. And obviously the third one is reach. And I'm going to give you also a few updates on the latest numbers on how quickly we can penetrate a new version of the Flash Player. And this is very important because we are not, the Flash Player used to be, new version of the Flash Player used to be deployed every year, every 14 months, 16 months, and so forth. Now we're pushing new features much more often because we are listening to developers, and developers want new features, so we want to give those new features to the developers as soon as possible. And with the latest additions to the Flash Player update technology, we can push this technology very, very quickly. So if you compare the quality in terms of gaming, and you compare the reach of traditional game consoles, such as PlayStation, Xbox, Wii, the Flash Player gives you so much broader audience with the same kind of content that now you can actually publish to everyone, which is probably like around 1.3, 1.4 billion people worldwide, and deliver your games to all those players. That's why a lot of game publishers and traditional AAA game publishers as well are looking into Flash, are looking into the browser to deliver console quality game through the browser. Obviously, mobile is probably the biggest platform where game publishers are concentrated, but we need to remember that in many parts of the world, the browser, the desktop, is still the main way to actually deliver and consume games. I'm going to show you a quick video of later of a Chinese game that has been developed in China. And in China, for instance, MMOs, massive multiplayer online role-player games, are huge. And all those games are played by Chinese people on internet cafes, at their homes, mostly through the browser, not through mobile devices yet. So we need to take care, we need to actually remember that consumption of those games come from many different devices, but the vast majority through the browser inside a desktop device. Okay? As I was saying, how quickly we can actually push now updates. Well, in Flash Player 11.2, which is the latest release that we had 4 weeks ago, we introduced a new feature which is called the silent update. And that allows you to, allows us to push new updates of the Flash Player to the consumer, to the user, similar to the way Google Chrome does it. Now, in the first 4 weeks, we have been able to update more than 103 million people of that 11.2 release. That's huge. So that means that pretty much in about 24 hours, we are able to update a new release or a new feature release of the Flash Player to more than 103 million people. Okay, that's really, really, really powerful. Because if we want to continue to innovate the Flash Player technology and we want to keep adding features, we can certainly do that in a much more quicker pace than we have done in the past by pushing those updates to the user. So that's really, really powerful. Now, who are using Flash games? 9 out of the top 10 Facebook games on the web today are built with Flash. And the interesting thing is that some of those games that are very, very successful did not start on the web, started on other platforms such as mobile. The number one case for that, I think, is Angry Birds. If you look at Angry Birds, it started as a mobile game. That's where Angry Birds was really, really successful, and it still is. But the reality is that they wanted to expand their model, their success, to other platforms. And what was the biggest platform for biggest consumers and biggest players? Definitely the web, and certainly Facebook. Because they could potentially get 500 million plus users, players. So when they did that, they wanted to choose the right technology to deliver a unique experience in Facebook, which was different from the mobile experience that they had, but also they had to introduce new ways to actually monetize the game. Because remember, when you play or buy Angry Birds on your mobile device, you pay for the game. But on Facebook, the economics are different. So they had to think different ways to actually deliver Angry Birds on a social network via the browser. And they chose Flash for that. So in that case, the revenue model changed, and they had to introduce new features, different ways to actually monetize the game on a free-to-play environment, which is Facebook in this case. So for that, they introduced a couple of new features that I'll talk about. But the underlying technology that they chose Flash. They chose Stage 3D via the Starling framework. And for physics, in that case, also they chose a box to the ActionScript 3 implementation. So it's purely ActionScript driven. And it allows them to actually increase the number of, for instance, explosions and effects, and number of particles. So the experience that you get on the Facebook version of Angry Birds is extremely interesting. And because now it's really GPU enabled through a Stage 3D. So what features did they add in terms of providing different ways to monetize the game? Because remember, it went from mobile to the web. First of all, they took advantage of features in Flash Player 11.2, such as full screen. So now you can actually go full screen, play the game in full screen, in a very similar experience to what the traditional Angry Birds player have on the mobile and the tablet. The second thing that they introduced is power-ups. So remember, they need to start monetizing the game in a different way. So they introduced these power-ups for users to actually, I only have 30 minutes left. Wow, time flies when you're having fun. To actually enable the user to pay for stuff and monetize that. They also introduced an avatar creator, which is a fun way to actually have the user create their own avatars and play the game with their own customized blur, for instance. So it's a very different experience in a much more social network. And now you can also play against your friends in Facebook and so forth. So it's a very great example of moving a game from mobile to the web. Now, it's not only Rovio is building or betting on Flash for games. It's the major game publishers worldwide producing games today are looking into Flash for delivering the next generation of console quality games on the web. One of the partnerships that we just announced a few weeks ago is the collaboration between Adobe and Unity to provide Unity developers the ability to export their content to Flash using Stage 3D. So let me just quickly give you a run-through how the export will look like. So this is Shadowgun from Matt Fingers in Brno. Who are building, it's a pretty well-known game on iOS, and they're now using, the game is built with Unity, and they are now looking into releasing a version of Shadowgun to the web using Flash. So just
exit play mode, and I'm going to go to build settings.
So as you can see,
select the Flash.
you build a game, and at some point you're able to say, I want to publish to Flash. And it's going to compile the game, it's going to deploy it to a Swift, which you can actually put on your browser and your app and run.
And all the lighting, exactly how that was in Unity. And one of the amazing things about
from a AAA perspective, this is extremely powerful because now the ability to actually use a really high quality 3D gaming tool such as Unity to actually create a web browser-based game is an amazing combination because it opens those AAA games away from the console to a much broader audience. So I'm just gonna let it run inside the browser real quick. As you see, the same game running within the browser, exported from Unity. And it could be single player or multiplayer, it doesn't matter. In this case, Shadowgun is actually a multiplayer game, but they could build it, it's a single player, but they could build the next generation in multiplayer. The backend technology for multiplayer or single player doesn't matter, because the client technology is Flash. Another example that probably many of you have seen is Unreal, the Epic engine running, exporting also to Flash. You can go to unrealengine.com/flash and take a look at the example of Citadel, which is a great example of what you can accomplish with the UDK engine and the export to Flash. Now, leveraging the success of previous games, I think many of you know Machinarium, which is also a Czech Republic game publisher that, Amanita designed the created Machinarium, which is a Czech Republic-based game company. They just launched a brand new game called Botanicula, which is also developed with Flash, and it's already winning awards worldwide in terms of creativity, design, sound, and so forth. I recommend you actually take a look at the game. I have it running here, so really quickly, you can take a look at it. And it's a very, very, I love the graphics of this game. They spend most of the time, the success of a game comes into the gameplay, but in my point of view, it's all about the design, it's all about the graphics. And these guys did an amazing job. So let me just show you really quick. It's about these 5 little friends that live on a tree, and they need to save the tree. So I'm just gonna quickly show you this. So now you have this 5 friends disembark, and you need to save the tree. In order to save the tree, you can move along and find different clues. You it's a puzzle game, so it's very similar to other puzzle games, but you need to find different clues. So maybe you want to travel around the tree and maybe I need to find those leaves. So let's see if I can find one. This is the end, but maybe I can shake this. Oh, there is a leaf, one of the leaves that I want, that dropped inside this hole, so maybe I can see if I can recuperate that. So, how can I do that? Maybe this guy can help me. Oops, maybe not. How about this little guy? Oh, nice. And how about this one? Ooh, it's eliminating an insect. So again, it's a very simple game. It's a puzzle game, so it's going to get more complex. But the graphics, the quality is just outstanding. So it's another example of you don't have to go all the way to AAA shadow gun kind of games. You can deliver high quality, simple 2D games that are getting a lot of success. And those guys from Hermanita already released the game on different platforms. This one is actually running on the Mac App Store right now, and it's getting a lot of attention, a lot of money. So just so to change a little bit the perspective. All right. Let's keep on going here. Sorry. Now, but again, you can always say, okay, I'm really interested in the next generation of what's going on with 3D on the web. And to me, one of the regions where things are really hot in terms of like 3D development for the browser on the web with Flash is definitely China. I was there a couple of weeks ago doing an event with like 600 Chinese developers in Shanghai and Beijing, and they showed me this game which is going to be launched this summer, running as a stage 3D Flash game. It's a multiplayer online RPG, and I just wanted to show you how the quality, the graphics is just amazing. So you can see the amount of effort that they put on delivering extremely high quality graphics MMO using the browser. This is the kind of game that you get today on a console. And now you're going to be able to play that game just using the regular browser, which is extremely powerful. Isn't this impressive? Yes? No? If it's not impressive, I don't know how can I impress you more with a game in the browser, seriously. This looks to me like amazing. Besides, they both look really good when they fight each other. Anyway, this is the next generation of 3D MMOs. I have a bear on the background, that's from Angry Birds, I think. So what are the new gaming features that we have introduced or are introducing in the coming releases that is going to allow you developers to actually create new games and solve some of the problems that you've seen in the past? First one that a lot of people have been asking for is mouse control, like really controlling mouse lock, middle and right click events. We have introduced those features in the latest release, and which is key. For instance, if you're building a first-person shooter game, you want to be able to lock the mouse so you can actually point and shoot people around, or whatever you shoot it. You don't have to shoot people; you can shoot anything else. So this is really important for FPS development. So again, mouse lock, right to middle and right to left click events. And I just want to show you here a little bit of how the action script will look like when you're using or listening to those events. For instance, for mouse lock, it's as easy as say stage.mouselock equals to true, and then you track the movement X, Y. So pretty simple on those events. Okay? And then the same, similar for mouse events for right and middle. Another important aspect of things that we're improving is driver support. We understand that the driver support in browsers, in desktops today, varies a lot from old machines to brand new machines. So we started with the first release of Flash Player 11 was supporting GPU cards or drivers from 2009 plus. We are lowering that in the 11.2 with 2008, but we're going to go down as 2005 and 2006 drivers to support Stage 3D, which will open tremendously the amount of people that can leverage Stage 3D content. I have 20 minutes. All right. And then another example, or another feature that we're introducing in the next release of Flash Player is concurrency. And again, this is a typical feature that many traditional C++ game developers for AAA games are very used to work with, because it allows them to actually work on the game mechanics, work on the main stage, and then on the background do different tasks such as AI or physics or anything else, or browsing or loading shaders and whatnot. So with the next release of the next major release of Flash Player, we will introduce the ActionScript workers, which is a concept very similar to concurrency. So it would allow you to actually do a task while something else is doing another task. I have a very simple demo that I can also show you here very quickly. The concurrency one. Okay. So this is just a very simple one. Okay. All right. So here I'm just trying to load an XML with 26 megabytes of data. Now, if I don't use concurrency, or I use the current Flash Player capabilities today, my display will freeze until I load all the data. But with concurrency, I can say I continually display something on my stage while another thread is loading that XML. So for instance, if I load in my main worker, notice that the square freezes for a bit. Okay? Can you notice that? Right? Now, if I use ActionScript workers concurrency, that will not freeze at all. I can keep loading those 26 megabytes of data, and also it's a demo, so it's bound to fail. As you can see, it doesn't freeze at all. Okay? So that's the point of having concurrency, which is the ability to actually say, I want to do something else on the display, and I want to work with the game whilst my game is actually maybe loading new effects, new levels, or new shaders, or whatever you want to do, and do that on the fly, because you have multiple concurrent threads happening. So this is a very powerful feature. The demo is actually very simple, but the concept is very, very powerful. All right. Native extensions. This is a feature that has been available on Air for mobile devices since 11.1 launch. But it's a powerful feature because it allows developers to consume APIs that are not native to Air on those platforms. For instance, if you want to access the iOS Game Center, there is no API in Air that allows you to do that. But you can build a small C++ library that accesses the Game Center in Objective-C, for instance, and you can consume that API from Air. So you can pretty much do whatever you want in any platform, because you can always write a native code extension to it, and any developer can consume that. There is actually a couple of nice websites that you can actually check and look for native extensions. There are native extensions for, again, the Game Center, OpenPaint, IAD, and so forth. So if you go to Milkman Games, they have a bunch of game extensions, native extensions exposed there that you can download. Some of them are free, some of them are paid, but it's a very powerful feature. Flash CX6, we just launched the latest release of Creative Suite with Flash CX6. And there are, I think, a couple of interesting features there as well for game development. One is the sprite sheet generator. For all of you that have been doing game development for a long time, you know that you probably have at some point dealt with sprite sheets. So with Flash CX6, we now allow you to actually generate sprite sheets from a Flash animation extremely simple. I have a quick example here in Flash. So this is a very simple animation. Okay? All right? So this is my animation, and maybe I want to generate all those sprite sheets in PNG or whatever, so you can reuse them later on in your game. Well, you can certainly do that in a very simple way. You just need to select the animation that you want to generate the sprite sheet from, right-click on it, say generate sprite sheets, wait. All right? And there you go, all the sprite sheets are generated for you. And you can actually preview them, how the sprite sheet will be animated. Okay? And also when you export, you can choose which framework you might want to export for. JSON, or maybe you're using Starling, or maybe you're using Cocos 2D, Thistle.js, Sparrow, etc., etc., etc. Even because it's an extension, you can actually, because it's the data format, you can actually export it and then create your own and add new versions of whatever data format you want to export for. So it's very, very powerful. Okay? Because now you can use the tool to create animations and then export it as a sprite sheet. The other interesting feature, and I'm going to use the same example, is, and this is around HTML5, and HTML5 development. We're seeing a lot of interest in building simple, casual HTML5 games for all browsers in any platform. And I think with Flash CX6, if you're a game developer of those sort of games, if you used to develop with Flash, you can certainly start using the tool to actually generate HTML5. We've worked with Grant Skinner to actually come up with an extension for Flash CX6 that allows you to export from Flash to HTML5. It's called Create.js. And again, it works mainly for timeline animations. So if your game has ActionScript with one port, you will have to do the JavaScript yourself, but it allows you to actually cut down the development process for simple games, which I think is an interesting concept for HTML5 today, when it's going from Flash to that platform. So for instance, I can choose here and say, I want to export that same animation to HTML5. I can preview it as well. I'm going to choose my desktop, let's say. Choose. I can publish. And again, this is the same animation that was developed in Flash, but it's now fully running as an HTML5 animation using canvas and whatnot, using the Create.js export. So it's, again, very powerful feature. Because now you can combine both Flash development and HTML5 development in your workflow if you want to build simple across platform, across browsers for HTML5. Right? So very, very good stuff. All right, let's keep going. So that was the sprite sheet, and this was Create.js export. How about the latest runtimes? What are we working on that is currently in the pipeline for Flash Player? So right now there is a preview version of Flash Player 11.3 and Air 3.3 on labs.adobe.com. that you can all go download, play around with. But I wanted to give you a little bit down on the rundown of the features of those releases, and also what we're thinking about the next one and the next one, because we want to give you a really clear roadmap of what we're working on. These are some of the features. I'm not going to go through all of them, because I don't have all the time, but I think a couple of interesting one is, for instance, the Stage 3D progressive texture streaming. This is really powerful when you are actually working with 3D content and you want to be able to change your textures on the fly. You're going to be able to do that with the next generation of Flash Player because you can do the streaming of the texture. The other one that I think, for instance, is interesting is the context 3D.driver info. It's going to allow you to check whether the GPU of the driver that you're working on is, for instance, supported, if it's blacklisted, and you can be able to detect why your 3D content is falling back to software, because that driver info is going to give you that information for you. Okay? Sometimes, for instance, the user may have unchecked the hardware acceleration checkbox on Flash Player. That driver info tag will also give you that information as well. So it's pretty powerful to actually control which games are going hardware accelerated and which ones are not, and why that is happening. Mac background update for Mac. The stat that I gave you before, around 103 million people being able to silently update, that was Windows only. We're adding that feature as well for Mac users. So now the update of the Flash Player will be much more faster, not only on Windows, but also on Mac users as well. How about on Air? Obviously, we're going to get all the features that 11.3 has, and we're concentrating a lot around iOS development. We want to make sure that when you develop games for iOS using the Air packager, you get native performance, simulated support for native iOS. What else is going on there? Support for Mac App Store, your Air developments. And I think one interesting one, which I think it was listed here, is the Stage 3 Performance API that I think is on the next one as well. So what happens after 11.3 that is already on labs? We have Dolores. Dolores is the next major release that will come this year. And it supports the concurrency that I talked about, profiling, advanced profiling with Monocle. And I'm going to show you a really quick demo of Monocle. Monocle is a new tool that uses telemetry to better understand what's going on with your Flash content. And it gives you a much deeper understanding of just traditional performance and profiling tools for Flash. We're going to lower the drivers, as I said before, and then we're introducing a performance index API, which is an ActionScript API that will allow you, developer, to actually get performance data of your own development. So very, very interesting. And what happens after Dolores, which is this year? The next major release of Flash Player, which we are calling Next, we are going to take a look at the Flash Player itself, and we're going to actually refactor the entire virtual machine, the entire player, to actually to a much modern and up-to-date architecture. We're going to work on the ActionScript side, on the virtual machine, on the ActionScript language, especially on the type inference, and we're going to add support, for instance, for hardware types that are not available today in Flash, that a lot of times, especially in gaming, is required to actually get support for those sort of for typing. So again, we're going to refactor the entire Flash Player to actually make it the latest technologies and the latest software development inside the player to actually make it extremely fast and to cover the needs that most of the Flash players developers need today. So how about Monocle? Again, it's a performance tool based on the telemetry API that we're introducing in Flash. Let me give you a sneak peek of how that looks like and what you'll be able to see and visualize using the Monocle tool. So for that, I'm just going to launch Monocle over here. So this is how the tool looks like. And I'm just going to very quickly minimize it like that, because I want to show you some content. So this is Monocle, and this is my content. So this is Angry Birds. Again, it's built using Flash Player 11, Stage 3D. I'm just going to reload it, hopefully. If my network works. Okay. So the moment it loads, you see Monocle listening for that Flash Player content being loaded. Okay, so I'm just going to play a game here. Skip this. Alright, so I have my content loaded. This is my Flash content. So let me show you just how the content looks like in Stage 3D. So you can actually track pretty much anything that is going on inside that Flash Player. For instance, I can pick a particular frame and I can see all the flow of calls being made. Purely in ActionScript, also these playlist regions that have been drawn on the stage. But for instance as well, I can take a look at the vertex and shaders, which is a feature that we are adding, but it's not in this build yet. How about maybe
looking at the entire content inside Monaco. So actually you can go frame by frame to actually see how the game progresses inside the game, okay? So again, you can track all the APIs, you can jump into a particular part of the API call of the stage 3D, so you can go as quickly as you want into the performance. And you can get all the frame stats, such as how much time it takes for rendering, for action script, for video network, for other, such as the garbage collector, and so forth. So it's a very, very powerful feature and tool actually for optimizing your game and making sure that Flash runs as the way it should when you're developing for games. So Monaco will be coming in as part of the next release of major release of Flash. All right. So how do you program for stage 3D?
Obviously, there are a few ways you can do that. The two main options are low level. You can go down as much as you want and do your own stage 3D API programming, which is kind of advanced. That's people like Rob from Away 3D doing those sort of developments. Or you can use one of those frameworks. That's the reasons why Rob and others are creating a framework, so you don't have to go as low as the stage 3D API. Those frameworks, again, Away 3D, Alternativa Platform, who are here as well, Flare 3D and Minko, provide really robust 3D action script frameworks for stage 3D. Now, in terms of 2D, again, I think it's as important or even more for game development than 3D, because the vast majority of successful games today are actually 2D content. If you take a look at, for instance, Captain Rope or Angry Birds, Bejeweled, and so forth, these are 2D games. So don't underestimate the power of 2D, because it's the vast majority of successful games are built for 2D. And for those, you can also obviously use other frameworks. Starling, which is an open source framework for delivering stage 3D content for 2D games. It mimics the Flash display list, so you don't have to change the way you develop. Instead of using the traditional Flash display list, you use the Starling display list, and you can start working for that, which is pretty simple. You want to take a look at the Starling. There are a couple of games published there. One, T-Ball, which is the product manager for Flash. It's a great game for starters. But you don't have to use Starling. You can use other 2D frameworks for game development, such as ND2D or even GAMM 2D, which also gives you a really powerful framework for developing games for 2D. Now, the last thing I wanted to talk about is, so we've seen, or I've talked about stage 3D on the browser, on the desktop. How about the mobile? Well, this is one of the areas where we wanted to have a really powerful presence of Air running on iOS and Android. And I think this is something that we have really accomplished, and we actually can deliver close to native performance on iOS and Android devices using Stage 3D. So I just wanted to show you for the last time, for the last 2-3 minutes, a couple of samples of Flash content running using Stage 3D on iOS, and then I'll take a couple of questions and I'll wrap it up. Let me show you a couple of things. This is an example of a game called Delta Strike, which is actually built with a Wave 3D framework. It's running at 60 frames per second on the iOS device. Let me see if we see some other. Well, let's shoot this guy. Notice the performance, the quality, the graphics.
running really smoothly here. So this is a game that was built for the web, and it was just published to iOS using Air Packager. So really powerful, what you can accomplish with Air now, because again, you get native performance for 3D content. Okay. Let me show you another quick sample. Tanky Online, which the guys from Alternativa, the guys from Alternativa have it running over there. You can see it now, right? Oh, sorry. Anyway, it's froze. Let me just, because this one is the other way. Let me just show you this one right here. Bullet Sky, which is available on the App Store. This is Chinese developed, and you can go crazy with effects and so forth. There's no screen? Sorry. Let me run it again. Stage 3. Okay. So a couple of examples really quickly of the performance that you get with Stage 3D on iOS. So with that, I think I have to finish. I'll take 5 minutes of questions. I'll be at the booth later on. If anyone has any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer. Yes, I'll give you the mic and I'll take this one. Thank you.
Thank you. These really amazing presentations, and now your questions.
Make those questions easy.
First, thank you. My question is, what about the performance on the old iOS device, iPhone 3GS and iPad 1?
The question is, how about the performance on
the Stage 3D?
Yeah.
On iPhone 3GS and iPad 1.
As part of what I was saying around Air 3.3 and Dolores release, we are introducing performance updates for previous versions of iOS, because we want to make sure that obviously the hardware that you get on an iPad 2 is different than what you get on an iPad 1, we know that, but we're going to make sure that we leverage as much performance as you can from the old devices. So this is the performance updates for iOS versions, iPod 1 and iPhone 3GS coming in the next release. So we are aware of that, and we are working on that, yes. Yeah.
Hello, Enrique. Thank you for presentation. I have a question about new features of Flash Player. Why Adobe decided to make these features payable? Because as I know, if I want to use these features, my application, my game revenue should be about.
I'll answer that, sure. So every feature that I showed you here are free. Okay, what we are introducing is a small subset called premium features, and those premium features only apply if you combine the usage of a Stage 3D and fast memory opcodes. That combination only happens if you are coming from a tool such as, for instance, Unity export. They use both features. But you as a developer, you use that tool to export. If you're using something like a Way 3D or using any other platform, all those features are free. We're only charging for very specific premium features, which is the combination of fast memory opcodes and Stage 3D. Those are very, very unique.
But what if I decide to make a free game?
A free game? If you make a free game, you don't pay anything. You only pay if you're making more than $50,000 in revenue, which I think if you're making $50,000 is good because you're making money, right? And you only pay when you start making $50,000 and above. So if you make $49,000, all of that is for you. It's free. It's free for you. Okay. But if you decide to make a free game, we don't charge for free. We only charge for people that are making really successful games. And I hope you made $2 million. And we will take only 9% of that revenue. And the reason is we want to keep innovating and we need to fund the development for that. So if you make free games, we don't charge for free.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
And I have another question about Flash Professional CS6. And you implemented support to HTML5.
Yeah.
And Adobe also decided to implement Edge.
Yeah. Yeah.
And why you decide to keep two products?
Well, because the audience for those products are different. First of all, the feature to export to HTML5 is not a feature of Flash, it's an extension developed by, not Adobe, but a third party, Grant Skinner, okay? But I think it's a very powerful feature. But the audience for Edge is traditional HTML5 or HTML web designers, web interactive designers. People that have not played or worked with Flash in the past. They don't understand the concept of Flash. But Flash as a CS professional tool that allows you to export to HTML5 is a tool for people like you that have been playing with Flash for a long time. So the audience is completely different. As we move to the next years, some of people that have been playing with Flash will probably start playing with Edge as well. And they will probably start playing with Edge from the beginning because they understand the tool. But from the beginning now, the audience are different. Okay?
Thank you.
No problem. Yes, one question over there.
It's actually, I want to continue the previous question. How do you find out what my actual revenue is? This is the first part. And the second part is, if I want to publish free content, like free 3D rotatable objects, which use for whatever reason the main memory, can I get rid of this annoying text in the right format that I am actually using premium features?
Yes. So if you're using, so right now you have that watermark that you're using premium features because we have not released it yet. Okay. This is the premium features will be available on the Dolores August timeframe. Or Q2 timeframe, put it that way, Q2, Q3. So we say that we were going to be starting adding the Flash premium features in August as part of our announcement. So once that happens, we will remove that watermark. Okay. In order for you to consume FPL features, Flash premium features, you will need to register with us. So we give you a key so you can use that. Now, from that moment on, you are able to use Flash premium features for free. Now, when you start making more than $50,000, you will need to report those revenues to us. That process is still not fully defined, so I don't have all the details on how does that work. But just imagine that we will actually work with you to actually make sure that if you're making more than 50,000, then you report those revenues and so forth. Okay?
But if I'm making more than 50,000 and I don't want to tell you about it?
Well, because you register and you have a license from us, although it's free at the beginning, we have the audit rights to audit you. Okay?
So you can revoke it anytime and my game breaks?
If you're not paying, yes. In theory, yes. But if you're not paying for anything that you should be paying, we should be able to revoke it.
And what about websites? They are not games, usually sold for one-time payment.
I mean, it doesn't matter. I mean, we are going to be charging whoever is making those $50,000. If you sell it to a website and that website is not making that money, then it's fine. Again, we don't want to charge multiple people. We want to make sure that we charge the right one, which is the one making revenue. I think, again, this is not about charging just to make money. I think we want to be able that whoever is building content with the Stage 3D and the Flash memory upcodes and are benefiting from it, because it's a very powerful combination of features and you're making money with it, then we are asking for a 9% cut of it. But again, if you don't want to pay for it and you are silent and we never go back to you, it's our loss. But again, if you make $20 million, chances are we'll figure it out that you are making